Good evening. Welcome to another live edition of the Shankly Gates Podcast. I'm David Brindle. As you can see on your screen, I'm joined by two wonderfully handsome men in Kieran Grayson and Paul Jones. You look then as if you were like, who's he with? He's not with us, is he? A bit like that, boys. Come on now. I mean, it was a pretty uneventful game at the weekend, wasn't it? We're going to struggle to fill half an hour here. But, we'll try our best. Now, we're going to talk about everything or as much as possible about the Merseyside derby that happened on Saturday morning. And we'll also look ahead to the Ajax game coming up on Wednesday night. We'll touch on that, and also we'll renew our hot topic of the week. We've had a few if you've watched in the past. We usually have a little debate at the end about a hot topic. Our hot topic this week, we'll give it away early, is a Liverpool's title chance is done and dusted now that Virgil van Dijk is out of action. If you want to get involved with that and you've got thoughts on that, just hit a little comment below on the page and we'll get to them at the end. But first of all, Kieran, Paul, how are you doing, guys? Paul, it's been a while since you've been on the podcast. We've missed you, mate. I hope all is well.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you. And you, mate. I hope you're okay too.
I'm doing well, mate. I'm doing well. So, I mean, me and Kieran were on just before the Merseyside derby the other morning, talking about the game. And can I just add that I did predict 2-2 live on the stream, Kieran? I think you'll be able to back me up on that.
I can, mate. I'm sure you're absolutely made up that it happened.
I'd have been a lot happier if I put money on it, but yeah, not wise. But Paul, what were your thoughts straight away after that game? How were you feeling?
I think it's difficult because now we've had a little bit of time to reflect. I probably think a little bit different than I did on Saturday afternoon. Saturday afternoon, I was obviously a little bit disappointed with what happened right at the very end to sort of snatch victory away from us. But when I look back now, overall I thought the performance was 10, 20 times better than a couple of weeks before away at Aston Villa. So I thought we started well. We got an early goal. I think it's the fastest derby goal in 30 odd years. We played with a purpose, with an intensity. We were still going forward and attacking when the first big controversy of the day happened. And that shocked us a little bit, put us back a little bit, and I think it allowed Everton into the game. They capitalised on that, fair play. And were probably the better side for a good 20-25 minutes following that injury. They got the equaliser in that time, and then we seemed to settle down just before half time. Second half came out, and I thought we started the second half well as well. Again, we managed to get the goal in front. And then again, just a bit of a lapse in concentration. Everton punished us, fair play. They've had a lot of goals that have come from that left-hand side in Digne and crosses into Calvert-Lewin at the moment, who's flying, and they've done it again on Saturday. So, and then even with the sort of late setback, I think there was only about 8 or 9 minutes to go when they equalised. We've gone forward again and looked to get the winner, and obviously what looked like we had the winner, and unfortunately it wasn't to be in terms of what decisions have happened following that.
Yeah, we're going to touch on the decisions and we'll get into that. Kieran, what did you make of the game? Were you at all surprised by how it panned out?
A little bit. I mean, I wasn't expecting an early goal, and I think that really that did change the course of the game. I think any early goal does. But I'd echo what Paul said. It was a much improved performance from the Villa game. I mean, we couldn't do much worse. So yeah, I was pleased to see that. Obviously when we will touch on it, I mean that certainly the Van Dijk going off, I think changed the game for me. Really, certainly you look at the 2 goals that Everton scored, 2 headed goals. I think if he's on the pitch, there's a good chance that we don't concede those goals. But they're all ifs and buts really. So yeah, I was pleased with the performance. I thought, as I say, much improved. Just at the end of the day, it was just a really difficult one to take.
It certainly was. I think for me, it was one of the more exciting Merseyside derbies. Certainly, considering the past few years we've had draws, but not as exciting as that. We've had 0-0s and tight games, and things like that. So I think it was a good game of football. Regardless, it was. I mean, if you're a neutral and you're waking up on Saturday morning, that's your offering. You'd be quite happy about that. Hell of a game of football. But yeah, I mean, for me, unfortunately, it's going to be overshadowed by the decisions that happened throughout the game, and we will touch on them. I'll start with the Jordan Pickford situation, let's call it. At first, I don't know about you, Paul, but at first, my thought was, well, Van Dijk's offside, so that makes anything that happens after it irrelevant. And then obviously you're getting referees like, I think it was Peter Walton in the studio, wasn't it, telling you that no, if it's classed as serious foul play, was it? He can still be sent off. I mean, initial thoughts, Paul. What were you thinking, and what are you thinking now? Should he have been sent off?
I mean, there's two things just to touch on a couple of subjects that you've mentioned there. The first one is around the law of, once the whistle's gone. Now, everybody keeps saying about the law of the whistle. The whistle hadn't gone until after the challenge had been made, so that is irrelevant anyway. If you look at the video, the flag doesn't go up until Van Dijk's already on the floor. And then once the flag goes up, the whistle goes. So that is irrelevant. However, we'll speak about that in terms of the law. And it's funny because I was on the line at Vauxhall Motors on Tuesday last week, and we had a very, very similar situation in that a free kick had been blown, and then a lad from the opposition went in 2-footed and was red carded for it. So the option to red card him is still there, whether the whistle's gone or not. You can still be sent off after the final whistle. You only have to look back at Goodison a few weeks ago. Slaven Bilic was sent off at half time. So, these things can happen. Just because the whistle's gone, it doesn't give you free rein to do what you want. Having said that, I think it was a genuine attempt to stop a goal, or at least a gilt-edged chance by Pickford. I don't hold any blame or any malice towards Pickford, and I think if we were in the same situation, I would be wanting our goalkeeper to be alert and come out and try and challenge that situation. So for me, my issue is with the incompetence of the officials around it. That's fine. The goalkeeper's come out for it. He's made a challenge, which happens to be late. That's fine. It happens in football, 10, 15 times a week. It happens every week. And there's no sort of, no, I'm not saying there's no mention of it, but there's no big uproar about it. I think the uproar has come from the incompetence of the officials to try and discount it by not even looking at it. I mean, my initial reaction before I knew whether he was offside or not when they were checking it was, that is a penalty. Clear as day, that is a penalty. Now, the issue with it be, if it wasn't penalties, you've got now the law around double jeopardy. So if it's a penalty, you can't, it's not 100% certain that they get sent off because of the double punishment. So if you're given a penalty because it was before the whistle, then for me it's a clear yellow. If you decide that it was after the whistle, then a red card can come, certainly for me. And I think Alan Shearer summed it up perfectly on his comments later on in the evening when he said, that the officials were good enough to spot a minute alleged offside, but weren't good enough to see a 2-footed lunge 10, 15 yards in front of them earlier in the game. And I think that was where a lot of the anger has come from. But as I say, I don't hold any ill feeling or anything else other than for Jordan Pickford was coming for the ball and was trying to sort of stop Virgil van Dijk having a free shot on goal, which is what for me I would expect any goalkeeper to do.
It's his job, isn't it? At the end of the day, that's his job, and I think it's absolutely disgusting the fact that there's people who, again, these idiots are out there and they're giving him abuse on social media, and the police are now involved.
For me, David, just to comment on that, mate, I hope the police get them, because I hope the police get them. I hope they throw the book at them, because you know, I don't want to sort of stereotype, but these people who are hiding behind stupid accounts with dodgy names and all the rest of it, it's not the real name, it's not the real picture of this person. They think that they've got immunity because they're hidden behind a daft picture and a daft username or whatever, that they can say what they want. And you can't. Pickford come out, he apologised. Everybody in football who's ever kicked a ball in your life will have seen a challenge like that on a pitch. Whether you've received it, whether you've done it, or whether it's been happened to somebody on your team, or you've been on the opposition team that has done it, so on. It happens, as I say, week in, week out, up and down the country. God, I think I could probably count every Sunday league game would have at least 2 or 3 of those type of challenges in it. That's football. So for these, and I'd like to be nice, and I will be nice by calling them idiots. I'd like to call them a lot worse, but these idiots find it appropriate to start abusing people and sending stupid threats and whatever. Then I hope the police throw the book at them.
I'm with you on that, mate. Totally with you on that. There's no place for it. He hasn't gone out there and purposely tried to injure Virgil van Dijk. He's just doing his job, and there's been a coming together, and these things happen in football. Kieran, obviously have your say on that as well, but what were your thoughts on the whole Van Dijk Pickford situation?
It's just looking at it. I mean, first off, just looking at it, it didn't look as bad as you thought from that angle. But when you see replay after replay, I've still seen replay after replay. But for me, it just gets worse and worse the more you see it. And I know he's come out and he's panicked because he's seen he's not going to get there, and he's thrown himself at it. But it just looks absolutely horrific. I mean, you have all this, chat about VAR. It's the officials behind VAR, how they can just ignore it, because obviously it's come out today that Pickford's not going to face retrospective action for that, and the reason for it is because the VAR has seen that incident, so they can't go back and retrospectively punish. So for me, that the wording of that law is it's ridiculous. I mean, I can say, probably it is a genuine attempt to get the ball, but it is really, really reckless. And I mean, Virgil van Dijk, he's 5'6", 5'7", nobody. He's massive. It's got to take some force, to put a man like that out for, potentially so long. So, just going and looking at it, and obviously with that happening, as I've said, it changed the course of the game, and as we'll allude to later, might just change the course of our season.
Well, we're going to come to that a little bit later on, about the course of the season and what it means going forward. Obviously, Van Dijk is set to miss potentially the entire season. We know he's had surgery. There hasn't been an exact timeline. His ACL's done in, isn't it? So it's I think we read at least 6, 7, 8 months, which, we're looking now at next season. I thought Klopp's comments are quite funny in the press conference. I don't know whether you've seen that. Something about Liverpool will wait for him like a wife waits for a husband in jail. Something like that he said, I think, this week. I don't know whether that's true, to be honest. I've just seen that flying around, but it sounds Jurgen-ish, let's say. So, I mean, let's move on to the no goal, if you like. Paul, you picked up on it. How difficult is it to take when you look at that picture that it's a goal, isn't it? Like it's impossible to say that's not a goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kieran touched on it about VAR in general. It was brought in to allegedly and supposedly bring an end to these conversations that we're having now. And for me, all it's done is added to them. It was supposed to end any confusion. And if you look on social media and so on and so forth over the last couple of days, it's just heightened it. No one's got a clue what's been decided, what's been seen. I mean, one thing that did make me laugh, I've seen one of the pictures that the Premier League had released with the 2 lines on the red and the blue line. And the lines weren't even, they weren't even, when I say they weren't straight, they were straight, but they were on angles. So, if you look at it, they don't run parallel with the 18-yard line for a start. And then the second one I seen was the dotted line that comes down from Mane's sleeve is actually on a diagonal angle. It's not straight down. And I think Henderson touched on it when they say, they sometimes bend the line to get the result they want. I mean, for me, again, it's not some sort of conspiracy. I don't think that VAR is out to get Liverpool. I don't, and I've seen people claiming opposite, that VAR favoured Liverpool and Liverpool only won the title for VAR and all the rest of it. And I don't think there's absolutely none of that whatsoever. It's just the inconsistency in the humans that are using the technology. I don't particularly like it as a technology. I think it can be massively, massively improved. I think the Premier League have admitted that there is room for error. So if you're given decisions like that, and I seen one last night in the Real Sociedad game, was given for literally millimetres as well. And a certain Spanish newspaper were releasing tweets about how pathetic it was and so on. And it's not just, the English game that suffer with it. It is European, and it's just got to be improved. If they're going to insist on us using it, then they've got to make sure they get it right, and drawing diagonal lines and lines that don't coincide with an 18-yard line and so on is just not good enough. I mean, it was particularly difficult to take because to the naked eye, I don't know anyone that said it was offside other than Evertonians who were even, and I think there's a tongue-in-cheek remark with Evertonians.
Yeah. Well, I've spoke to a few, and I'll be honest, like all of them have said it's not offside. There's no way.
Yeah,
and obviously they're happy to have as we would in their situation, they'll have a bit of a laugh about it and say it's miles off.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? But I think they know deep down.
Of course.
But then, at the end of the day, Paul, as well, I think every club has suffered from VAR as well. And it's swings roundabouts, isn't it?
I was just going to say, if you remember, I've got a friend who's a big Man City fan, follows them home and away. He's a cracking lad. And when it happened to them, it's happened to them a couple of times. And I spoke to him and I said, I'm not going to laugh. I'm not going to mock it because it will happen to us one day. And it's happened to us on one of the bigger games of the season. I know, obviously, for the Man City example I've just given, this was the main one that sticks out was a Champions League quarter-final. It is altering the course of huge games. But, one thing I have said to any Evertonian I've spoke to, and we've had the tongue-in-cheek and we've had the laughs and all that sort of stuff, is that it will happen to you one day as well. And that doesn't make it right. But it will happen, and that's the wrong thing about it. I think just touching on VAR, just for one last thing, is that we seem to be talking about it, not necessarily us in particular, but, the footballing public in general seem to be talking about it week in, week out for different reasons. It was Sheffield United the other week. It was Wolves the other week, a couple of weeks ago. It was Roy Hodgson was complaining about it. Steve Bruce benefited from it against Tottenham and still come out and said it's a shambles. It just seems to be week in, week out. There's something different to moan about with VAR, and for me, there's got to be something done about it that can make it more consistent, whether that be training the humans who use it or, improving the technology so that it's beyond any reasonable doubt. I don't know, but there's got to be something done.
What do you think, Kieran? Are you with Paul on that one on VAR?
It's not so much that. I think VAR in itself, it's got all the, the tools there to be right. The problems I have are the sort of the buffoons of the officials that don't know how to use the technology right, or don't, can't, draw lines properly, all that. Because the one thing you see is, I don't think they released to, one thing I've never seen is how they actually draw the lines on how it's supposed to happen. It's one thing I
think just on that, mate, I think they used to draw them live last season, didn't they? And they've stopped doing that this season. But we don't actually see, I think it is actually literally a case of, it seems to be a case of putting like a touch screen and dragging up. So,
yeah,
that's human error straight away.
There's also, not necessarily the offside one, but I just think some of the laws in the game are just, they've even altered the law mid-season obviously with the handball law, you saw so many, quite a few instances of penalties being given for what was just jokes, really. So for me, I think that, VAR can be used for, good, but, it's just all that. It comes into it and the decisions you see time and time again. I mean, obviously we're not allowed in stadiums, but I was getting to the stage last season in games. Liverpool score a goal. I just don't celebrate anymore. The first thing I look at is the referee and the assistant referee. And I can only really now celebrate when that, the kick-off happens straight after.
It's not the same, is it? It's not
No,
the
it's
same. Look, we could talk about VAR all day. We really could. And I think most people around the country, most supporters around the country could talk about VAR all day. But let's move on and appreciate that it was a fantastic game of football. Just before we move on to Ajax, I personally thought that Thiago was just outstanding. I don't know what you think about that, Kieran, but for me, he was one of our best players on the pitch, if not the best.
Yeah, my spot. I couldn't disagree with that. He was the standout figure in that team again, making his full debut in middle of midfield. We spoke about how good he was again the Chelsea game when he played, and again making his full debut in a derby game. It looked like he'd played in that midfield for years. Just the way maintain possession of the ball, which I just think is one of those key things to have as a midfielder. Just retain that ball, break the play up, and lay it off when you've got to. So for me, yeah, definitely he was the standout performer for me in that game.
Okay, let's just move on to Ajax really quick. Obviously, let's talk team selection. Paul, what are you thinking on this? Will it be a derby hangover, or will we be going full strength again?
No, I don't think there'll be a hangover. I mean, result-wise, okay, we could have had the 3 points. We haven't, so the decision may give you a little hangover, but I don't think there will, because for me, if you look at the performance was good. Better than good. It was a very, very good performance. So I don't see why we'd have a hangover. I just think it's the team. In terms of the team selection is going to be the most difficult part because of obviously missing players. I mean, I suppose the good news is that players like Naby Keita are back. So if Thiago is missing, you can you've got Milner there who hasn't had much game time over the last few weeks as well. So there's going to be a lot of probably changed faces on Wednesday night. Obviously the key one is who replaces Van Dijk. I noticed that Fabinho did play the second half and actually replace Van Dijk in the League Cup tie at Lincoln. So, it's a possibility that he could drop in there and do that. And then obviously you have to bring somebody else into midfield to replace Fabinho. So I don't think there'll be a hangover. I just think it'll be very interesting to see what type of team we do put out, because I think Ajax will be looking to exploit, obviously, no Virgil van Dijk, obviously being a Dutch centre-half as well, they'll know a lot about him. And I think, but if you look at it, and this is not trying to diminish Ajax or whatever, I do feel Ajax have lost a couple of their best players as well. I think Hakim Ziyech, who's joined Chelsea, was instrumental for Ajax. I thought he was outstanding in the Champions League run. And also Donny van der Beek, who's gone to Manchester United, I thought was phenomenal. So it'll be very, very interesting to see who both teams play, really.
Yeah, I think we spoke about that, Kieran, didn't we, on the when the draw, we done a live stream for the Champions League draw, and I mentioned Ajax would be one of the teams I'd want because they've lost a lot of players. What are you thinking from this one, Kieran?
Yeah, mate. I'd say for this one, it's going to be a goal fest, because obviously no Van Dijk playing, we've got to fill a hole there. For me, I would put Fabinho there. But we'll have to see what's done on that. They had a good result at the weekend. They beat Heerenveen 5-1, and they've started the season quite well. But it's obviously with no Van Dijk, for me, I can't see us not conceding 1-2 goals. So we'll have to score 2 or 3 to try and win that game. Probably their standout player to look out for is, obviously play for Southampton in the Premier League, Dusan Tadic. It seems everything goes through him at the minute. So he's one that we'll probably keep an eye on if they're going to score. So yeah, I just hope we go there. We don't have too much of a hangover, if there is any, from the derby game. And we try and get our Champions League campaign off to a winning start.
Absolutely. So that's on Wednesday night. I think we'll try and squeeze a preview in and some reaction to that one later on in the week, probably on YouTube. So if you haven't already subscribed to the Shankly Gates podcast on YouTube, get yourself over there and subscribe to that. We've also got an Everton podcast up and running for any Evertonians that might be watching a Liverpool Football Club live stream. I don't know if you know any Evertonians. Got off to a great start last week, and I'm sure that'll be another interesting podcast later in the week. Let's move on to our hot topic then. Obviously, the huge news that Virgil van Dijk is going to miss the rest of the season. Is that the end of Liverpool's titles hopes and or Champions League hopes? I'll come to you first, Paul.
No, not at all. I think anybody who thinks that's probably been a little bit disrespectful. Liverpool are not a one-man team, and to suggest that is pretty disrespectful to other lads. Will it dent it? Of course it will. Any team losing somebody as good as Virgil van Dijk will feel that. January isn't too far away either, so you never know what we may do in January. But for me, no, there's still 3 competitions to go for. You've got obviously the league title, you've got the European Cup, and you've got the FA Cup. And I feel that as a squad, we could be going for all 3 of those. It's going to take a little bit of luck, and we can't risk have any more injuries or many more injuries. Which is a bit of a worry. But for me, no, certainly not. If you're throwing the towel in now, then I'm sorry. You're not what Jurgen Klopp's been talking about the last 5 years about, turning doubters into believers and about the squad being mentality monsters. You haven't been listening for 5 years if you're going to throw the towel in now.
Kieran, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I enjoy the optimism. I'm a pessimist myself, but I think it's too early at this stage. But to say anything, but 5 games in, we're only 3 points off. Every team I've seen, bar maybe Everton and Villa, there's definitely holes to be picked there. But from our point, it has just been made so much tougher. Just because I just can't see us keeping a clean sheet without him. To me, so we've got the firepower there to go and score. To go and score 2, 3, 4 every season. I mean, well, we have scored at least 2 goals in every league game this season. So for me, that's a positive. But we're going to have to keep that up right throughout. Well, not the season, maybe till January when we get someone in. But it's going to be a really, really tough ask now. It's just I hope obviously the rest of the team now have to step up. That's their job now. They have to step up. While he's gone, certainly the back 4. So I wouldn't say it's completely over. It's far too early to say it. Ask us again. After Christmas, but for me, not all hope lost, but a serious dent into our chances of silverware this season.
My main concern is the fact that Gomez and Matip are both very injury prone. And you're going to be asking a fantastic central defensive midfielder to play centre half, and he's not a centre half. He's good cover. And for me, we could end up with, I think Matip had a scan after the derby, so we can't trust him. And I think it just shows that we should have bought another centre half, because the worst has happened and you need to plan for the worst. The only small bit of hope that I have is that Gomez and Matip have played with Van Dijk long enough that they might have caught some of his good traits and they might have rubbed off on them a little bit. Whether they can stay fit, though, that's the main thing. But I mean, we'll see. We'll get our first look at it. We're hearing that Thiago's going to be assessed ahead of the game as well against Ajax, by the way, and Naby Keita should be fit, but centre half's a big question mark for me. Paul, Kieran, thank you very much for joining me this evening. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, no problem, mate.
And also to Grace, I don't know what she couldn't make it tonight, but she'll be back at some point soon. So thank you both very much appreciated as ever. Go and have a nice cup of tea and relax after venting your frustrations on Saturday's game. Thank you very much for joining. As we said, the Shankly Gates podcast, you can subscribe to it on YouTube, watch it whenever you want, and also the Everton show is on YouTube as well. We'll catch you probably later in the week to talk more about Ajax and also look ahead to Sheffield United. But for then, we'll see.